Alright, what's up, Dragon Brood? Today we're going to take a look at a Bant deck that actually takes advantage of a bunch of permanents, a bunch of artifacts, but also uses a couple of new cards to pretty good effect. So that main new card we want to talk about is Repulsive Mutation, and I'll give y'all kind of a preview that I have a couple of decks coming down the road over this next week that are going to play this, but I wanted to give this card a really good look because there's been cards like this in the past that have something to do with creatures that also counter spells that I think are very good. So I think here this could be the type of card that this deck wants for the current meta. But what else are we playing, right? We're going to play the typical blue-green artifact stuff. So we're starting with Spyglass Siren, no surprise, makes a map. Teething Wormlet, because we're going to be making a lot of artifacts, so obviously this is going to get some work here. We are going to be playing Get Lost. In a pinch, you could use it on your own stuff, but mostly you're going to be using it as a catch-all removal, obviously. We do have Regal Bunnycorn. Again, when we're making all these permanents, this just gets to be a big body. We do have Sharp-Eyed Rookie, which I had a lot of fun with this in the mono green list that we posted a couple weeks ago. Don't know how it's going to work here, but we do have creatures that should be larger than it is, so we should get at least probably up to 3 triggers once this is on the battlefield. One of those things being Sentinel of the Nameless City, just making artifacts every turn, helping our other cards. Also Trostani, this is a big 4/4 for 3, which is really nice. Sizable body, can trigger some things, but most importantly, it can make your just weak stuff have Death Touch, which is great. It can give your big stuff Vigilance, so you can attack and block. And if you have a flyer that's already grown to a 3, 4, 5, you can go ahead and give it Double Strike and try to end the game. So I like a lot of what this card's doing. We're also going to play Kellan, Inquisitive Prodigy. I don't know how often we're going to tail the suspect, honestly, but just having it be a big 3/4 flyer and being able to pump it is pretty good. Also going to play some Virtue of Loyalty because, well, instant speed 2/2s are great, but we don't have that many late game plays, so having this to be able to pump up our team and take advantage of all this stuff with Trostani makes a lot of sense. We're going to play 1 copy of Ezram, Agency Chief, mostly because if we get it late, the fact that it has hexproof is really nice, and we should have some artifacts that we can sacrifice to it. If not, it's a big 5/5 flyer. Mostly just want to try it out, see if it does anything. And of course, like we talked about earlier, we are going to be playing a full set of Repulsive Mutation. If you want the final deck list, as always, be sure to check out the end of the video, because I'm sure something will change as we play these games based on what we learn. But if you want to download it and try it out for yourself, go to the description below, look for the blue arrows that take it to our Moxfield link. You can get this deck and a pile of other awesome things, because we've been playing some really fun stuff in Standard right now. Also, I want to say, I actually played the games and had an audio issue, so I'm going to get to ride through these with you and give you kind of a retrospective of what I was thinking while I was playing those games, or how I felt about how some dumb plays I made. So, this is going to be a little bit of a different video. Let's check it out. Let's go. Yeah, this one's pretty sweet. I don't have a problem with this hand at all. This is just knowing that we have slow lands. It's kind of just deciding, all right, seeing that the opponent has blue-black, I think I'm going to take this a little bit slower. So I can play to flash stuff in during their end step. I can play 2 things on our turn. Like, Pilfer's annoying, but we have enough things that we're not worried about it. However, what they take here is going to kind of dictate my plays a little bit. And because they chose to take the rookie, I was thinking, okay, so you don't have any easy creature removal, and you're worried about large bodies or us getting value out of our cards. So they're planning, from what it seems like, to play the long game. So now I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm going to do something to your end step. Are you going to counter? And that was probably the safest point they were going to have for a counter, because they knew it was in our hand and we weren't going to be super threatening this turn. But now I'm just kind of like, all right, no cut down, no type of counter. Like, what are we doing here? So my guess is they kept the hand probably with sorcery speed removal, like Virtues, and maybe a hand that's got Shieldrids and stuff in it. And if so, that's kind of okay. I could have played the other Wormlet here, but I didn't want to get my board swept by something, you know, destroy all creatures, mana value 2 or less or whatever. Because it would have been very likely. Like, with the type of hand they kept, if they're playing the slow game to try to get to a big Shieldred or whatever, like, that's totally reasonable, and I didn't want to walk into that. But if this ends up being a turn where they play like a creature or just spot remove one thing, we might just go for it after that. Because if they had a sweeper, they would have went for it, you know? Yeah, this gets interesting. Because I now kind of have to play Otawara to hope we find a white land, but I should have waited until I cracked this map, because if I found a white land, I could have played that tapped here. And ultimately I did, but it's one that's untapped anyway, so we got lucky. But if it was one that came into play tapped, I would have felt pretty bad, because then I wouldn't have the opportunity to play Loyalty next turn. And I probably should have just played the Wormlet here, honestly, and just made it a 2/2 before I played that other Siren, because really nothing else is going to go on here. And if the opponent sweeps the board, then fine. We just play a 2/2 and then just virtue over 2 turns. But having that other Wormlet out could have definitely sped up the clock here, because we would have had another 2/2, which it probably would have been the thing that died. But then now I'm just like, you know what? While they're tapped low, let's go ahead and get our 2 in, and we're going to go ahead and play Loyalty instead of just trying to build to the board, because now, if they do find a sweeper, we can go ahead and just play more creatures, start rebuilding, and we already have the Loyalty to pump them up, so we don't even lose creature value or size for a turn. Yeah, at this point, I'm assuming the opponent's just in bad shape, but they're at 17, so they have a long way to go. But you don't see the Black Adversary very often. I think I've played it a handful of times in some decks that were focusing on Death Touch, and 1 or 2 that cared about zombies. But yeah, now I'm just like, okay then. Like, we can go ahead and just play Wormlet if we want. And then if they do get a sweeper in step, we'll just play 2 2/2s. And while we are giving up value as far as size, I think it's still worth it. There's no point in being in a hurry here. Like, nothing's going to come of it just getting into a hurry. But the opponent's kind of in bad shape. Pressure's about to get really big. You know, even if they got removal cards each turn, the creatures are going to start growing out of control. Alright, so this already 8. And we know we can put another 4 under the table. That's 12. If we found something to pump the Wormlet, that would have been it. So yeah, concession. Great, so this hand's actually a pretty interesting mulligan. By the way, it's been a while since I've done one of these retrospective type videos. I usually end up doing them if we have some type of issue. But this was an interesting mulligan, at least, because it was just like trying to decide, like, how aggressive does this hand get to be? Because we don't have any artifacts for Wormlet, but my thought was, okay, I do have enough things that make artifacts. Might as well at least get some early plays. If nothing else, we're attacking with a 1/1 and a 2/2 if opponent has a slow draw. And then we have up Repulsive Mutation. We'll just figure it out from there. Yeah, now, when you see a laydown arms, you kind of just start thinking, okay, they're either playing super aggro, mono white, and they just didn't have a turn 1 play, or this is a control white list. But then they're going to go ahead and search here. So now I'm just like, okay, this is some type of mono white control. We're going to have to play with that in mind. And unfortunately, Get Lost doesn't destroy artifacts. So that's going to be a real issue here. But we have a creature. We've got Repulsive Mutation, so we can protect the thing. They won't be able to pay 3, so we know that. And this was just like, okay, cool. I'll get a 3/3. You don't get a Welcoming Vampire. It was weird to even see Welcoming Vampire show up here, though, because so far no action said that that's what this deck was going to be. And then I had a bit of confusion, because I was like, wait, why did that not counter the spell? And it's having to remember that you target to put the counters, and you target for what you're going to counter. So if you don't do both of those things, it doesn't do what you want it to do. So just like, all right, now we know. Let's not mess that up again. Good news is, though, the creature's still a 3/3. They don't have a good block here. It's all good. Playing Spyglass Siren makes a lot of sense here, because we could probably, over the next 2 turns, pump this up big enough that we could also fight with the Welcoming Vampire if necessary. But now I'm a little confused on even what the opponent's deck is, right? Because I don't even know here. Yeah, you see Elish Norn, it's like, oh, So this is like a creature deck. Okay. I was like, that was weird. Also, I just let that resolve for no reason because I could have countered it, but I had the get loss. So I figured I'll just use that. So there is an argument to be made that if I just counter and then just get lost the vampire, we're probably still pretty well off here, you know? But I just do this. In the event we draw a land, it's cool. But we got Kellan, so that's alright. And we're definitely ahead in the damage race here, and we still have Repulsive Mutation, so no need to be in too big of a hurry here. Yeah, and this sucks. They had to lay down arms. I'm like, well, I could make them pay 3, but then they just pay it. I was like, that's not any good. All right. Though, truthfully, I probably should have done it anyway, because then I either get to keep my bigger creature they're having trouble dealing with, or I just, you know, I get a big Siren no matter what, right? I would have had a 3/3 Siren that would have been hard for them to deal with, but it is what it is. Now, seeing the Lauren was kind of tough, because it's like, well, now, even if I get into a situation where I can play the Virtue, I probably have to wait now. Unless they just have nothing in their hand, you know? And this would look a little suspect to the opponent. I mean, I guess they could think I have another Virtue or something, but realistically, I'm obviously up to no good if I didn't play the Kellan that you know I have. I would say there's an argument to be made there that if all it was... Oh, no, I guess... I'd say we could have used Kellan's Adventure, but it didn't really matter. We get to counter a Wandering Emperor here, though, which is super sweet. So you counter that, and then this goes to a 4. And again, you saw I almost forgot that I was just almost like submitted 0, because I'm used to just hitting, all right, cool, we want to resolve. And it's like, no, you have to actually pick your target when you play it. That would have been rough if I'd have made the same mistake twice in a game, though, wouldn't it? Now the opponent's at 6, and I'm starting to look at my hand and go, all right, we have a few ways to get this done. That destroys all the creatures, everything 2 or less. Go ahead and play the Kellan, so we're being mana efficient here. And then next turn, I could still play Sentinel and use the Mutation. Yeah, and then my Rel shows up. So this gets all kinds of weird, because it's like, okay, so you're playing Welcoming Vampire Myrel with no other soldiers. Lauren, which is fine. You destroy artifacts or enchantments and stuff. But then there was like a Wandering Emperor. Like, so now I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm starting to see ghost at this point of just trying to figure out like what's even going on. Also, I made a mistake here by not targeting their bridge. I could target the Glyph Bridge because Kellan can destroy any artifact. Yeah, you see me looking at it now going, I could have destroyed that. I just, in the middle of it, I was so focused on my own mutation that I just forgot that I could get rid of that, which was such a dumb play. Even if I wasn't going to do that, a better play there still would have been play the Wormlet and then just go ahead and attack with Kellan and the Flyer, right? Because then I deal 2 more and opponents at 1, and now they're in a worse situation regardless of what they do this turn. They have to top deck a sweeper or something. And even if they do, well, then I'm just attacking with the 2/3 land. So that whole turn, even if I don't kill the Glyph Bridge, just has a better out in just playing the Wormlet attack. And then this turn, the opponent's in a worse situation. Because then they're just at 1, and they don't even want to attack with anything, you know? And then it's tough, because where I might be able to use the Glyph Bridge, or not the Glyph Bridge, the Mutation, I can't here because they have Myrel sitting on their side. That gets a little tough. So as long as Myrel's out, I don't really have the Mutation as a counter. So my plan here is, opponent's at 3. They can't ever really attack with their 5/3 here. So I'm just going to do this until they find a removal spell. That's kind of my game plan. Because I can't do anything on their turn anyway. So I'll just set up a situation where they're hunting for a sweeper so they don't die. Because worst comes to worst, I can always just activate the creature land, let it get a counter. You know? if they let us draw cards, that's not the worst thing here either. And we got a rookie, which works great. And then now, this is kind of like, okay, you're going to go ahead and attack with your creatures. So here, I'm pretty sure means they found a sweeper. I'm just deciding how much I believe that. So we're at enough life that we could take the 5. I know our hand can just rebuild a board, so I'm not that worried about it. But again, Glyph Bridge shouldn't even be here right now. That was just my silly mistake. And it was a Sunfall, so that makes sense. Though had I blocked, they'd be able to get less value out of a Sunfall, which really does matter. Alright, we go to 9. And then these trigger, we get a bunch of maps and clues and get to pump things. And yeah, so this is the main reason I wasn't super concerned about the situation. It's not great. They still have a lot of things they could draw, but I felt like, all right, we still have the ability to make instant speed creatures. We could do all this. They found another Glyph Bridge, which is annoying. And we go to 3, but again, we're not that worried about it. We have a creature, we have a flash creature, we could activate a land. So we're all right. And then here we just go ahead and do it. So I'm like, you know what? Whether I'm doing this mutation for 3 or for 5, I don't think is a huge difference, unless it's just another sweeper. But then again, we start attacking with creature lands, and we're not that worried about it. And then I kind of dig the opponent's play here of just like, you're never going to do anything with this Mirix token, right? The little might. So you let that die, turn it into another 5/3. Granted, I think this next part I was a little confused by. Yeah, because they go to attack here. And now I'm kind of like, why attack? So we're going to double block. But then now they absolutely have to block, and they know we have a creature land. So now I'm just like, you must have another removal in hand or something. But otherwise, this doesn't make sense. And I have a counter to that, right? So, and then I just drew Boseiju, so I'm like, well, I could just kill the 5/3 now and have a counter. So I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, because now I don't have a counter. Now I can make my creature a 4, so whatever they have has to be exactly 1 mana and deal 4 damage, which doesn't exist. Oh, actually, I say that because we gave them a land. So I actually miscalculated when I did that. But they ended up not having anything, and they concede. But yeah, that ended up being a bit of a weird game. Credit to the opponent. Cool idea, but I didn't know where that deck was going, and I played around a bunch of stuff that didn't exist. And I made 2 really bad mistakes during that game. But the fact that we won, I think, says a lot about the deck, despite all that. Yeah, this hand I actually liked, but there was the issue of 2 tap lands, right? Going first, this makes this a little bit tough. Now, nothing wrong with saying play turn 1 Wormlet, play turn 2 Siren, let it come into next land come into play tapped, and then try to go off the next turn. But I decided I was going to take it just a touch slower. Probably a mistake here against mono red, but not the worst thing. I guess theoretically, though, it's not terrible because we would have taken 1 more point of damage to do that the other way. And obviously, we've all played against mono red. Every point matters. So if you don't have to take that damage, might as well not. Alright, when they play the Swift Spear here, I'm thinking, alright, Wormlet, you're obviously dead. But there was no play with fire, and there was no rage. So now I'm kind of like, what? And I could have played Sentinel here, and I think that's a reasonable argument to be made. Get a 3/4, get a point of life, get a 3/3 Wormlet. But I also figured, I was thinking there could have been a Godric here. Now, there's not a Godric, but there's a Twisted Fealty, which is crazy. So I'm just going to go ahead and counter this. Because why not, right? Figure just turn the Wormlet into a 3/3. Opponent gets an attack here with 1 thing, which is fine. We could live with that. Don't submit 0. Cancel, cancel. All right. Remember, pick your number. You're going to bump it to target your creature to put the counters. Target the spell you want to counter. All right. Cool. Now, I could double block here, but just not worth it, knowing that we're going to get extra life off of the Wormlet looking at our hand. So yeah, I think about it for a second, but really no block. And then now it's interesting because we could just like double Bunnycorn, right? Like, we didn't gain life that turn, but it's sure, I get to attack for 1. I was like, whatever. I'm going to attack for 4. I got 2 Bunnycorns. What are you going to do? The only thing to worry about here in this scenario, though, is if we block, say block with a Bunnycorn, and then they shoot down our 3/3 or something, that could make the combat math a bit weird, because the Bunnycorns would get smaller. But once this happens, I'm kind of like, okay, I'll block. And there's like, oh, they don't even have that. It's like, oh, man, we are off to the races now. Gain a life. Our creature gets bigger. We can even start cracking the maps if we want. Yeah, it's crazy. Where I'm just like, cool. You got the red deck blocking. They're at 8. And now I don't think they have a way out. Because we're at 14. We've got 3 solid blockers. A 3/4, 4/4, 7/7. And they're only going to get bigger. And we've got another point of life coming next turn. And we can attack with the flyer on a creature land. Yeah, Raptor's cool, but it just gets straight up blocked by the Bunnycorn. So yeah, opponent's pretty much dead, because otherwise they're just on blocking duty next turn, and that's not good for them. Yep, that'll do it. Opponent has a sweet name, Rhino Time. I don't know what that's referencing. This was a tough one. I want to keep this. I don't even remember. I think I kept it. Yeah, okay. Like, there's a real argument for mulliganing this one, though, because if we don't draw a green land, we're kind of leaning on a map real hard here. So we do get to see an extra card. So before we need the green land, we will get to see 3 cards, right? The one we're going to draw, the one from the map, possibly, and then whatever we draw the next turn. So here I'm going to go ahead, use that. I don't think it mattered, though, what the land was, because any of our lands we'd be able to play on tap next turn. But this kind of worked out. Oh, this was one of those other matchups where it took me a second to figure out where we were going. Yeah. All right. This was interesting because this Baird kind of ends up being a thorn in my side most of this game. But I never really, like, because of how their deck's constructed, I don't ever really have a good opportunity to kill it. But it's not doing enough to be a problem. It's just like a nuisance, right? Just making chump blockers effectively. And I'm like, okay, just do your thing, I guess. So Siren, then Bunnycorn, because Bunnycorn's big here. And I should attack with Sentinel here, because we would have gotten rid of 2 things off their side, which would have been okay. But as it turns out, not attacking with the Sentinel is actually okay. I think it's better when I have Get Lost up, because then I can, if they do try to double block, we can make some kind of ugly situations for them. Also, when you get a chance to block here, you always, if you only have 1 blocker back, you always want to block the non-gnome creature to put the opponent in a worse situation, to where they have a harder time triggering Animpakal. My problem here was that I really wanted an extra land, right? So that we could rookie and something next turn, or play like a Virtue and maybe still use Get Lost. But here I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to press the issue. You're obviously not wanting to block. And this is what I was just talking about with the Sentinel and the Get Lost, right? If they chose to block here, I could kill the bigger creature, still kill the smaller thing, and still be ahead there. And here I'm just gonna, I'm like, I'll use a map, hope we find a land. We don't. We find another Spyglass Siren, so that's going to the yard. Obviously, we don't want to draw that. My plan here, though, is, okay, cool. Go to the attack step. I'll just go ahead and kill Animpakal. But then the opponent's just like, oh, well, I have an Aurelia. How do you feel about that? So it's like, well, crap. Now when Aurelia attacks, I'm going to lose 3. They're going to gain 3. They're also going to get a card. I'm like, well, obviously we have to kill that. Plus, our Spyglass Sirens can't keep punching if there's a flyer in the way under the circumstances. So as much as I was saving that for Anampakal, looks like Aurelia has to get it. Now, the opponent could have attacked here safely with their Anampakal because I was tapped out. But I think they were thinking they may need to block with it. But I got lucky. I found another Get Lost. Again, not a land, but in this scenario, a Get Lost is probably as good as a land. Or better, really. And then here I had an interesting scenario because it was either use the map, shrink the Regal Bunnycorn, or just leave the Regal Bunnycorn back. Because I was thinking about attacking with it here. But I was like, what are we doing? My thought was, we're going to get one map here. But I could also just flash in a thing. And again, we still have the same combat trick with the Get Lost if they block a certain way. And the opponent just makes a safe block. Nothing wrong with that. But now we put them in a situation where they have to attack with Baird to be able to trigger Anampakal. But my thought here is we may not even do that. We might just kill the Anampakal anyway. And then Jetmir shows up. So now we had a real decision. Because Jetmir is really annoying. But if Anampakal attacks, then they'll have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they would be just short of being able to trigger Jetmir for ridiculousness. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just kill the Anampakal. We know we can put 2 things into play next turn. A third one with the Sentinel. So we're going to have a huge Bunnycorn. We're going to have 2 flyers. I'm at 15. I can still safely block one of their things if they want to do that. But like, Baird's still doing work this whole time. From turn 2 until whatever this is, turn 6. Baird is still cooking. Yeah, like, so kind of annoying. Alright, and I got another tap land, so that does turn some options off. I think here I'm just thinking about, I'll go ahead and play Razor Verge Thicket after combat. I'm just deciding how much we can get away with attacking with here. And I just decided the whole thing. You know, again, if they try to get crafty and block with Jetmir, we flash some stuff in, and we're still fine. Yeah, here they were about to double block and kill our Sentinel, and I was actually okay with that. But then they changed their blocks. Because the thing is the fewer creatures they have here, Jetmir is way less threatening. But now they're at 4, and it's like, well, okay, now what? It was like, that didn't hurt us too bad. They didn't kill any of our creatures. So now all I'm thinking about is play the rookie. So I have a Vigilance attacker next turn. I can still flash something in to block with. But I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we lose this? You know, and the only thing I can think of is, well, they could sweep the board here, but they're not likely to play that. But even then, we just flash in the Virtue of Loyalty, or the Knights. This is an interesting card, but it's not a flyer. And ultimately, we get 2 shots at making one of our flyers into a 2/2, so we could deal. Or either of them, just pump them up once. Alright, they're going to use a map. Which doesn't harm any of our stuff with that Beseiju, so that's good news. I like what the opponent's deck's doing, though. That feels like a type of deck I would play on this channel. 100%. So, I got nothing bad to say about that. Yeah, this was a little interesting, but I kind of get it. Because you're like, you know what? My creatures have Vigilance, but here I'm just blocking to trade. I'll just block your Baird finally so you don't get another blocker. Yeah. And then they gave up. Yeah, ultimately, they would have ended up with just 2 blockers to our 2 ground attackers, but one's huge, and our flyers possibly kill them anyway. So at this point, I don't think they could recover in the game, but Tough one for the opponent, because that's a cool deck. Something I will probably do before the end of the season. It looks very similar to some ideas I've had. Okay, we get to go first with this one. And I like it, though we are lacking white mana. But this isn't bad. Being able to rookie on 2, Sentinel on 3, Sentinel on 4, so you can get 2 rookie triggers. And you notice, even though it's a green-red land, which usually means some amount of damage deck, you know, I was kind of okay here just saying, let's just try to hold on to the channel lands for a second, just in case, right? That's all Lightning Helix, and I was like, wait a minute. What's going on here? So I think the plan here is go ahead and do that. If this ends up being some type of control deck, you'd rather hold the Beseju over the Otawara. But we'll see what happens to the Sentinel. I'm kind of expecting a get loss to come down here. But we'll see. Turns out it was not a get lost at all. It was a seal from existence, which was interesting. So now, in my head, I'm just like, okay, we're on a full-on control deck. I'm not going to use the Beseju to get rid of that, because that's just too much mana here. But we get a Wormlet. We get a Sentinel. We get to pump the Wormlet. So not a bad spot. And we still have a Kellan we can play. So far, the lack of white mana has not punished us too badly. I think my issue... And then it's like another seal from existence. Okay, well, there goes Sentinel. And now that lack of white mana starts to become a story. Yeah, you see me go to try to cast it, and I'm like, oh yeah, no white mana. Yeah, now I'm just thinking, how much do I care about them having a sweeper, right? It would have to be exactly depopulate here to matter. But if we play Kellan, worst case scenario, we can start looking for white lands by just drawing and sacrificing those maps. So, like, that's a thing. Or we could just leave up the Repulsive Mutation, but I don't think I want to, realistically. I mean, if they just have more removal, they have more removal, right? Like, at some point, they're just going to have it. The problem here now, and this is the good and the bad part of playing on the ladder, is the opponent might be playing some weaker cards, or at least lesser seen cards. But I don't know what's in their deck now. So this is that part when I talk about seeing ghosts, where I'm like, okay, and this card popped out, and I went, wait a minute. And then once I saw Miglos, I started realizing there's kind of a pattern here. They built the deck as a mid-rangey deck around the Appraiser. Right? Here I was just debating, like, I guess I'll just get rid of it instead of saving it for the Bunnycorn. However, I should have waited to play my land, so I could have possibly played a Bunnycorn this turn. Now, admittedly, the land I got would come into play tapped anyway. But now, I don't get to play Bunnycorn for 2 turns. And that is a little bit of an issue. So yeah, you'll see through the rest of this game, pretty much everything the opponent plays is 3 mana or less. So that told me, okay, as I'm starting to identify some things, this was built to be an Appraiser deck. Now it's just thinking about cards that are 3 mana or less that the opponent might actually be playing. And Miglos is a real problem. Like, I mean, I would have to commit a double... Even here, I can't even kill it. If they make them vigilant and put the extra counters on them, like, ugh. Here, though, I did debate if this was worth worrying about. Because I'm like, well, if they give Miglos vigilance here, fine. But I'm like, you know, I don't know what else they're doing. And they're going to have to prove to me they can kill Kellan. Because I don't know that they can without, at least so far, the removal's been Lightning Helix, Seal from Existence. So they either have to find another seal, or they probably can't kill Kellan once it gets 3 counters on it. At least that's my hope. And I'm not too worried about playing around Wandering Emperor. Though I always think about it because the card's obviously good, and you can still play that alongside Appraiser. But it feels like they built their deck to take advantage of Appraiser. And now Kellan being a 6/7 is great because even if Miglos becomes a 6/6, they don't have a good attack. But again, I'm going to get a little punished for playing my turn last turn a little too fast because I can't play Bunny Corn this coming turn. So now I'm kind of just hoping I draw something useful off the top, so my turn isn't just a complete waste, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm not sure what the opponent's planning to do here. They do take a long thought here, though. And I don't know if it's what's going on, what that one thing is. Maybe they're debating some type of weird attack with the protection spell, but whatever it was, we never got to see it. And this was kind of interesting, too, because I decided to map, but mapping is not the right play here. I should just be going to draw a card so that I'm getting whatever's on top if it's something useful. Because here, again, playing a rookie would have been sweet. Just having that in play ready to attack next turn. But because I decided to map instead of draw, it didn't work out too well. Because having a 3/3 Wormlet doesn't matter here. Wormlet being a 2/2 can still block the Appraiser. It can't even do anything as a 3/3 to Migos. So literally that +1/+1 doesn't matter. Unless I'm willing to put the +1/+1 on Kellan. But even now, unless they draw another Lightning Helix, that doesn't really matter because their life total was at a multiple of 6, which Kellan is. So it's still going to take me 3 attack steps here. So yeah, so I say all that to say using that map on the Wormlet was the worst possible play for the turn. Because like I said, I could have drawn a card, could have played the rookie. Next turn, play the Bunny Corn, go ahead and get a counter or get a token from the rookie that I could then sacrifice to Kellan and maybe start going off. But so far, we're still mostly okay. The opponent also doesn't know the cards that are in our hands. They may not want to be committing to stuff here. They decided to make their Appraiser bigger, which I think is the right call. But now the opponent's in a situation where we're at 18, so even if they do the best thing they can do with their attacks, we're okay for the most part. And they've got to find some way to kill Kellan in the next 2 turns, or they're just dead. Really on their next turn, because our 2 attack steps kill them. Alright. Here we go. And the funny thing is, we could have already had a Bunny Corn down previously. We could have had the rookie down attacking this turn. Like, this whole game could, like, 2 small decisions basically changed the entire complexion of this game and made it probably 2 turns longer than it needed to be. But we're just attacking here. But there is an interesting thing, and it's just like, oh, Kellan gets to kill an artifact. Like, we could draw, but I could also just kill their Simulacrum here. Which actually isn't a bad call, truthfully, because then they just have to spend all their mana to just stay alive. Well, I mean, not even that. I mean, if they spend their mana next turn and just put counters on a thing, it doesn't even do anything for them. But we did get another white that happens to be the Restless Anchorage. So we've got a lot going on next turn. Like, step 1 for the opponent is you got to kill Kellan. Otherwise, it's going to get real ugly because then we're attacking with a 5/5 Bunny Corn, a 2/3 Flyer, a 5/5 Wormlet, and a 3/3 creature, which is a lot. And then it was like, ooh, Helana, okay, that at least jump blocks for a turn. That's real. Like, we don't care that anything else gets bigger because it doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? We're kind of like, okay. Like, they have words, but I don't know if they matter. All right. We get to untap. Now, I will say this. If that was an untapped land, it would have been very tempting to play a Bunny Corn and attack with everything. Because now we can activate a Seachrome Coast and attack. They have to block Kellan with the Helana. The other 2 gets through because that's a flyer. They block 5/5 and 5/5. And then they take another 3. So they would go to 1. So unfortunately, getting everything in there doesn't do much here. Like, it looks neat. And I say that because, again, Kellan could just destroy the Simulacrum, limiting them on blockers. Would be cool, but not quite enough. But, man, it is really close. If that Thicket would have come down untapped, it'd have been an untapped white land. The game's over. I mean, effectively, had I played this game differently, the game would have been over last turn of the turn before. But this is fine, too. Because now we're just creating a scenario where, all right, we have a Bunny Corn backup, and we get to attack with a creature land next turn. This is probably all okay. The opponent obviously has the block, and then they don't have any good situations here. We're still at 20, so even if something crazy happened, we're good to go. Yep. All right. And this is kind of it. Like, I'm sitting there going, I don't know what they can draw here, but they need a lot. Even a sweeper is only marginally good because we attack for 2, play a Bunny Corn. Opponents at 2 with us having double map. You know, like, that's not great. But they did find an Appraiser, so I was like, okay. Well, that's not going to do anything, unfortunately, for them. Especially with us at 20, we don't even have to block at all here. We could just let everything through if we wanted to. Like, wasn't even close. All right. All right, so that brings y'all back to real-time me. This was a tough one because we really didn't get to see Trostani showcased, but good example there in that last game is where we had the Flyers, or even the game before, we were attacking with just the 2 Spyglass Sirens. If we were able to use Trostani, we could have just ended the game a whole turn sooner. Just like, yeah, give this double strike, boom, game. So that wouldn't have been too bad. Didn't get to see Ezram, but Ezram's kind of a fun of just a one like late game emergency type situation. So I don't mind having the one. I will say this though, if you want to cut them because you don't own them yet, because Ezram's still a rare, Trostani's a mythic. So if you don't own those, playing another like Sharp-Eyed Rookie, and then maybe just playing like a Schooner or something in their place is probably reasonable in this list, and I don't think it's too uncalled for. But I do like those cards and what they bring to the table, especially because their cost to size ratio and the abilities that they're packing, I think are both very good. The star of the show really was, though, Repulsive Mutation. Like, assuming we use it correctly as it needs to be used. Like, remember, you need to target your creature and target the spell, or else you don't get what you want out of it. Just keep that in mind if you play this card. But yeah, really good card. It can be used as an emergency pump spell. It can just counter a problematic card. Not much I wanted to change. The only thing you're going to see, though, in the land is that I did get rid of the tri-land. That gives us the blue, white, green. Mostly because I wanted fewer lands that come into play tapped. Just because we do have so many things on 1 and 2 that are kind of important to this list. You know, if we go Spyglass Siren into Bunnycorn, we can start going off to attack. Or Wormlet into, like, Rookie into Nameless or Sentinel is actually big too. So there's just some of those sequences where if you can get more untapped lands early, cool. So I did make adjustments in the land for that. But the final list, as I'm going to have posted, is 4 Spyglass Siren, 4 Teething Wormlet, 4 Get Lost, 4 Regal Bunnycorn, 3 Sharp-Eyed Rookie, 3 Sentinel of the Nameless City, 2 Trostani, 3 Wishes. Again, these could be flex slots if you want to change them. 2 Kellan Inquisitive Prodigy, 4 Virtue of Loyalty, another flex slot here if you want to change something with Ezram, Agency Chief, and 4 Repulsive Mutation. Lands are going to be 1 Island and Art of Water, Beseiju Forest, 2 Attica Waste, 1 Deserted Beach, 2 Restless Anchorage, 2 Seachrome Coast, a Brushland, 2 Overgrown Farmland, 4 Razor Verge Thicket, 2 Dreamroot Cascade, and 4 Yavimaya Coast. And I have to say, if you're looking to play with other crazy decks out of Markov Manor, or Karlov Manor, check out this other deck where we played World Souls Rage, went crazy on the ramping, and then just blew people out with direct damage. So that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.